It's a 5-day competition, and what we do is we taste all the wines in the first 3 days. We bring back roughly 20 to 22% of the wines. We retaste all those wines in the next day and a half, and then we bring back 20% of those wines, and we have a hard look at those to establish whether or not they would get our top award, which is a platinum award. Otherwise, all the wines are scored on the 100-point system, and we award the bronze, silver, and gold. I don't want to say that we're tough or stingy, but we don't give out the maximum amount of awards because we're really looking for excellence. We're trying to establish a benchmark for Canadian wines.
Quick, give it a shake. Give it some air.
But it actually worked.
We've whittled down our judges over 14 years. They're a highly professional group. They're trained very well, and they taste wine every day. We ask them to taste no more than 80 or 90 wines in the first few rounds. That's a very low number compared to other competitions. In the second and third rounds, the numbers are reduced again. So really the daily workload is not that heavy, and it's spread across all the panels. So I think we're getting really good results from that.
I would say this one is, if not the best, but definitely one of the best wine competitions in the world in terms of the quality of the judges, the fairness to the wines, the pacing. If you give your judges too many wines per day, it's not fair to the wine. We're not able to actually pay attention to each and every wine and focus and pick out wines that really deserve our attention and should be getting medals. It's easy to miss wines that are very delicate and subtle when you taste over 100 wines a day. And one of the things about this competition is you never taste more than 100 wines a day, and usually no more than 70 or 80 wines a day. So the pace is excellent.
No. Agree?
Well, all our people are international. In the first 6 months of this year, our people were in about 120 plus separate appellations around the world. So they're on the move, and they're very up to date on what's going on globally. We have a mix of retail buyers, journalists, wine writer tasters, and somms. So it's a fabulous mix of people.
It's important that the tapestry is so rich and varied. We have really, really strong tasters across the board, but when you have sommeliers and retail people and writers, media people, people who spend time on television, it just brings a dynamic that's unmatched anywhere in this country, judging-wise. The panel is tip-top, it's been honed over the years, and it's as good as it gets.
Our judges never see the bottles, it's a blind tasting, but everybody in the back room sees every bottle, so there are no mistakes. We don't put things in brown bags. We have a series of checks that any single entry is probably checked 12 to 15 times before it's in the glass in front of the judge. Everybody working in the back room knows what's going on, knows what the flight is, knows where the wine should be, and there's a lot of series of checks and balances. Meanwhile, when you cross the wall into the judge's room, that wine arrives in a glass with a flight number, and that's it, from 1 to 10. So the judges, all they know is that they're tasting Riesling. We try to minimize every mistake in the back room so that when that glass gets to the table, the judges only have to decide which are the best wines in that flight. We give them roughly about 3 minutes of wine. We try to keep the pace moving, so if they're tasting, say, 8 wines, that tasting's over in about 24 minutes. Then there is an exchange of scores on a sheet so that everybody can see what the scores are for wine 1. And if there's a wine out of whack, whether it's higher or lower, then there's an ensuing discussion, and the people that were either high or low have to defend their score. So, and if you cannot defend your score, then you've got to move towards the other, the other score. So it helps us to eliminate, mistakes in the judging. It's very hard to taste 100 wines and not make a mistake. It's not human. You miss a wine, sometimes you lose your concentration. That's why we have 4 or 5 people at the table. That's the whole point. Of course, we want all the wines to be served at the perfect temperature, so we get the room down and we get the bottles cool so that they can always warm up over on the judge's side. But, like most Canadians, we always say that they drink their white wines too cold and their red wines too warm. We do not do that. We want that wine to be in the most perfect space and time that it can be when it's in front of the judge. then it gets their attention and everything's perfect, we can judge that wine. And so we go to a lot of effort to make sure that that wine is in the right flight, at the right temperature, at the right time, so that it can be analyzed by those judges. We're not just throwing stuff out there. Well, in the earlier rounds, normally 3 or 4 people would judge a wine, and then if that wine gets on to the second round, then it could be spread across 2 panels, so that would jump the numbers between 6 and 8. And if it gets into the final day, there's a good possibility it would be spread to all 15 or 16 judges. So it's tasted 3 times. If you add up all the judges, maybe it's had 22 or 25 people look at that wine over the 5 days before we publish the results. In the end, it comes down to results. I feel so good about what the public is going to see that you can bet on these. You can go to your local store or winery, and when you see a gold medal from the National Wine Awards of Canada, that is something you can bank on.